Are Torpedo Bats good for the league, Jeff? A week ago, man, they were all the rage. The Yankees had one game where they hit 9 home runs in the game, and many of them were hit with torpedo bats, and the torpedo bat went crazy. Since then, I suppose that the furor has died down a little bit, but I guess are they maybe not even? We'll get to are they good for the league? Are they really even a thing?
They're going to be a thing because the Yankees got the results that they got. Now, the Yankees, though, their torpedo bats are individually groomed for each hitter. So the barrel is designed for every player. You know, Ellie De La Cruz picked one up off the bat rack basically and had a hell of a game. All right, yeah. What did he do the next 2 games? 1 for 8. And I don't know what he did this weekend at Cincinnati, but I don't remember hearing screaming headlines about Ellie De La Cruz and the torpedo bat. Now, Jock Peterson with the Rangers, he basically had one shipped to him, just a torpedo bat, and he hates it. All right, he used it Friday, dumped it, and hasn't used it since. I think though that the Rangers who are interested in it, they want to get it fit to them, like a suit.
That's right,
tailored to you.
That's right.
And but some guys are like, Josh Smith, I believe, said he swung it and it felt weird because the weight was somewhere else. It takes some getting used to, I think. And so, if the Yankees were trying them out in spring training, well, that's a lot of at-bats to get used to it. A lot of time in the cage, all of that. So everybody's kind of playing catch-up here. But it seems like it's kind of dying down a little bit.
Amazingly and quickly, right? You talk about a news cycle. The torpedo bat news cycle seemed to have been very short-lived. Now, that said, recently the commissioner has come out and said he believes that torpedo bats are good for baseball. And, I thought I liked the idea of torpedo bats until I heard the commissioner no, I'm kidding. I'm not that down on them. Although I don't know that they're bad. Let me put it that way. I don't think they're necessarily bad for baseball. I do find it so interesting and so funny, though, that they've been around for over a year now. Yeah. And there's a company in Pennsylvania, in the suburbs of Philadelphia, called Victus that makes the bats. And in 2024, over the end of 23 and the beginning of 24, they made a dozen for the Yankees. And they were the kind that, as Jeff describes, and Anthony Volpe was who inspired it this spring. But they take a guy, they put him in the batting cage with all kinds of different cameras and TrackMan devices and everything else on him, and they figure out where it is that he is, quote unquote, missing his, the ball, where the ball is hitting on the bat. And then they put most of the wood, right, the power, where those things occurred, where those spots on the bat occurred. And then they make a bat, and then it works. And so, not necessarily one size fits all. So they made a dozen in 23, 24. They made a dozen at the start of spring training this year. And the Yankees used them. Again, we know our buddy Jose Trevino took them to Cincinnati with them. He had tried them out. There are lots of guys who had, dabbled with them last year, and there was no storm. There was no big rush to get them. And then all of a sudden, that 9 home run game happened in Baltimore for the Yankees on opening weekend. Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, I promise you, every kid, every person, every coach in Little League, they all want this design for their kids. Because, and I thought that one of the comparisons I saw, Jeff, when they likened it to the big driver. I don't know. Yeah. Are you old enough to remember the smaller persimmon woods that
100%?
Yeah, we used to hit the driver, and there were small persimmon woods, and obviously they were much less forgiving. And then Big Bertha came out. It looked like the vacuum cleaner, and you're like, oh, you can't miss. I mean, you're going to hit a long way. And needless to say, anybody who's ever hit one of these bigger clubs knows, oh yeah, you can still hit bad shots with those, and you can still strike out with the torpedo bat. You can still mishit the ball, and we still haven't seen a lot of data yet on what about that ball where you get to extend your arms and it's at the end of the bat. Are you going to be able to get it out? Is there enough wood, enough power, enough everything out there?
Yeah. Volpe hit 21 homers as a rookie, but he batted 209. He had 12 homers last year, batted 243. Right now, through 9 games, 297 with 4 homers.
Okay.
All right, so, but he's also struck out 9 times, and in 41 at bats or 37 at bats. So that's 25% strikeout rate. I mean, you still have to hit the ball. That's one thing you have to do. It just, it's basically, as Will Clark said, guys who are getting jammed who don't know how to hit, who don't know how to not get jammed, are going to have a little. It's like kind of a grading on a curve situation. But I think that you'll see. I think you'll see guys try to take a smarter approach to this, and let the science happen, and then get bats that are designed to work for them. Are they good for the game? I don't know. I mean, how do pitchers feel about it? Nobody's asked pitchers how they feel about it. Yeah. I did ask one Ranger starter. I saw him take a look at the Jock Peterson bat, and he was holding it and looking at it. Came back to his locker, and so I was like, what did you think of it? And the Rangers have these things. I'm sure all teams do. They call it a puck. It's a baseball, basically, that cuts off the ends. So it's just the 2 seams. And they throw with it to work on spin rate and things. And so the pitcher said, well, why can't I use this?
Yeah.
He said it's still the same weight. It's still the same weight as a baseball. Why can't I use this?
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of, but then we talked about, all right, so these guys aren't afraid to get pitched inside anymore, So, all right, well, how's the end of the bat? The end of the bat loses barrel. So are you going to start throwing these guys that you tried to jam, you're going to start throwing them outside? And you're going to be able to see, oh, yeah, he's using a torpedo. I'm going to start pitching him outside. Sure. So scouting reports are going to change. Things are going to evolve. And really, in the end, you kind of wonder if they're just a short-term fix.
Yeah.
Because pitchers are great and scouts are great. And they're going to see these bats. They're like, oh, well, just pitch him outside. He's going to hit off the end of the bat, and it's going to be a little flare to right. So I just think that there's a lot of unknowns about this. And I think that they're also geared toward the thought that you're always going to be pitched the same way. That's not going to happen. And so we'll see how it goes. But I think they might be a kind of a flash in the pan, perhaps.
Yeah, it might be. It might be. And again, it might well work, even if it's a mental, reason that it works for Anthony Volpe, right? Maybe mentally he goes up to the plate, he feels better about himself. Good for him, right? And it may be something physical or scientific or mechanical, but in the short term, excuse me, it works for him. Don't know if it's going to work for anybody else. Didn't work for Jock Peterson. Did work for Ellie De La Cruz one day, but then didn't work again. They had back-to-back 1-0 games. I don't think he got many hits in any of those, or it wouldn't have been 1-0, right? So, very interesting study. It does kind of smack of the old Japanese saying, Jeff, a good samurai never blames his sword.
Yeah,
right.
No, there's something to that.
Let's don't blame the bat. Let's get back to being a good samurai, and let's go ahead and hit that baseball. But in the meantime, it'll be fun to watch, and it's always fun to see changes in the game that create other changes, a la pitching guys away instead of inside.
Yeah. It's an evolving thing, and I don't know if it's going to end well.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it, and we'll have it for you. If it happens, it'll happen here on the DLLS Rangers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.